So for me and Asha, it's not, yes, divorce is an option. There's certain things happen. We have certain boundaries that can't be crossed. And if they are get crossed, then we understand that this is the consequence. Mm-hmm. But our goal is not to not get a divorce. It's to stay married in a healthy and loving relationship.
What's up, real ones? Welcome back to the Real Relationship Podcast, where we're bringing the real back to relationships.
Yes, sir.
I'm Asha Steele.
I'm Devin Steele.
And we're so excited that you guys are tuning in today.
Yeah, we got another great episode for y'all. But before we jump into the topic, I know you had some things that you wanted to keep it real about, so go ahead and keep it real.
Actually, I don't. I don't.
Stop playing around.
I don't.
Come on.
Do you got something to keep it real about?
No, what you got to keep it real about? Like, stop playing all the time.
Okay. So.
Yo, what's wrong
y'all,
with you?
I had a mommy moment, okay? My husband over here, if y'all don't already know, y'all don't already follow him on social media, y'all make sure y'all go follow him. But if you're following him on social media, you know that he is the content creator, right?
Something like that. I ain't really in there, but you know.
No, he is. He is, like, with editing and making videos and just putting together. It's like you have a director, like, credential.
Yeah, so let
like
me direct our sex tape.
Y'all.
What?
Why do we have to go left? It's the beginning of the podcast. I'm just saying,
if you believe in my director ability, then let me go ahead and direct that.
No, we don't need to do all that, y'all.
Why?
See, rolling it back, okay? Because he just went all the way left. See, I was about to talk about the babies.
Sometimes you got to take your shot.
Yeah.
You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
Y'all, this man, help me, please, okay? But no, that he is a director when it comes to creating content, okay? So earlier, he made a video, right? It's like, I guess, what do you call it? Like what is it called?
A video.
Not a video, but like when see everybody just doing the same video over and over again. It's word.
Basically like a time lapse.
Yeah, but that's not the word I'm looking for.
But that's what it's called. It's like show Aria when she was younger to how she is now.
Yeah, that's not the word I was looking for. It's a word where it's like everyone's doing the same thing, making the same video over and over. Mm-hmm. But I don't know the word, so I'm gonna have to figure it out. But anyway, it was a video. And like you said, it was a time-lapse video where you show your child when they were younger and then it goes to when they're older or where they're at now in life, right? And when I tell y'all, I was already about to cry looking at everybody else's videos because it was just like so emotional seeing your child as a baby and then now them being maybe 3, 4, 5. But when Devin made that video, I could not stop crying. Like my eyes was literally like bawling. I was crying.
If they watching YouTube, I'm gonna go ahead and throw that clip in there with you crying. Like
Listen, it's a lot, and I felt like it was a lot because being in this home that we're in. Well, okay, so for me, it's important for us to create certain memories and have a certain dynamic with our children, be very intentional with our children, just because of my upbringing, right? Mm-hmm. And to see Aria, because she was the youngest, well, not the youngest, but she was very young when we first moved in here. When we first decided to get our home and, okay, we're getting settled here in Texas. This is where we're going to raise our children, raise our family, right? And so she was a baby when we first moved in. And I remember coming into the house with her and us just sitting and walking around an empty house, like, and it was just like the experience was, I was just in awe, right? Because I'm like, we're really creating and setting a foundation for our future and for our family. And to still be in that same home and all the memories that we created in this house and to see her grow up from just being a newborn to 1, 2, 3, and now she's turning into 4, it is so emotional.
Yeah.
Because I didn't experience that stability as a child, right? And so to me, seeing us raising our family and seeing the stability that they have and the love that we have and what we pour into them and instill into them and just actually being raised in not just a house but a home, it means so much to me. And I think that's why I really got emotional because it's just like, wow, like I see my child growing up in a loving, happy environment, in the same environment that she was introduced pretty much since she was born.
Yeah.
And it was a really precious moment. And that's honestly why I just was like, I can't believe it. Like 4 years have passed already. And it's looking at the videos or looking at pictures, y'all know if y'all have children, from 1 to 2, it seems like years.
Right.
As far as their growth and development and even how they look. It's like, where did the time go? So just seeing her from 1 or a baby before she was 1 to now she's about to be 4. And y'all know Arya looks like she about 6 years old.
Yeah.
It was so drastic and it made me very emotional.
To know the backstory, I get it now.
Yeah.
Because, you asked me, how come I'm not that emotional? And I don't know. Like, I expect her to get older.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I won't say that I don't have similar emotions, but you express your emotions different than I express my emotions. But the way you just explained it makes a lot of sense of why that all came out of you. That, we are actually in a place where we have been creating memories. And the video showed like, she's in the same spot that she was in before, and it connected with your childhood. I'm about to go left real quick.
Oh my goodness.
No, seriously, I'm about to go left real quick because I think that you're bringing up a lot of stuff that people can relate to, but they don't know you as much. They don't really know me. They know, part of my life that I shared with, what Leah was going through. But unless they read my book, they don't really know. Mm-hmm. You brought up some things when you was just talking about how you didn't really have stability growing up. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because when we did get this house, you said something to me and I felt it. Right. You know how you do something for somebody, they be like, thank you, but you don't feel nothing behind it. Mm-hmm. But when you said it, it hit different because of what you just shared right now about that stability. Do you feel like going into that a little bit to allow our real ones to know
Dang,
you?
Yo, we about to have another episode.
No. We're not going. No, we're not going to change the topic. But I think that this is important to allow people to know us, what we've been through, because our transparency can lead to other people's transformation. They may look at your childhood or what you went through, and they may not have hope for themselves.
Right.
But then when they hear your story, they're like, man, you know what? If Asha can do it, then why not?
Right.
Why not me? So do you want to, dive in a little bit about what that means for you when you say you didn't have the stability and what that means for you to be able to provide that for your family now?
So I'm not going to go too in depth because that, like I said, that would be a whole nother podcast episode. But to give just a brief story so y'all can envision what I'm talking about. My parents had me when they was very young, right? Yeah. And so I believe they was just barely in their 20s. Right. And so they were still living a life, trying to get their feet planted in the world, figure out who they were. They were technically adults, but in a sense, you're still a kid because you're still having a lot of learning and growing to do. So for the most part, our parents raised us, but we were with our grandmothers a lot. And even with that, a lot of the times we were moving around because we were either with our parents, or if my mom moved to another place and my dad moved to another place, it wasn't like we were really grounded anywhere for a very long period of time.
You get to put your roots somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And so that's what I meant by the stability factor. And we had a conversation about it before, and I actually had a conversation about it with my sister as well. There was a period of time where when we started dating, Devin and I started dating, I had, in a sense, been programmed to moving around so much, right? Because even when we started dating, of course, with him being in the NFL and going from, Cincinnati back home to Houston, it was still feeling like it was no stability.
Right.
And
you could have all the money and no stability.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had, from then, been so used to living, in a sense, out of totes, right? Me and my sister had this talk, and we talked about it, where we will always have our stuff in totes. Because it was like, okay, you can just pick up and go. Yeah. And as an adult, I was still living like that. Yeah. And I didn't realize it until we were in Houston. Of course, you have a few things, hung up. But for the most part, I had these totes. And I'm like, not even really thinking too much about it. But then as I looked back, it was like, dang, like, that's how I lived pretty much my whole childhood. So when we did decide that we were going to stay in Houston, we were going to, plant our roots here and have a home and everything like that. It was like kind of, I don't know. It was just like, okay, now we can let go of this
I
phase.
can unpack my totes.
Right.
Throw
I
'em
can
away.
unpack this. And that's when I really started to notice, like I said, because even as an adult, I still would go from place to place.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it was easy to just pick up and go. So I was like, you know what? It's time to get rid of these totes.
Yeah.
So even being in our home and like not living like that, like if you look at our closets, me having everything hung up, having shelves and having all of this stuff decorated and situated in our home, it feels like a home, right? It feels like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm comfortable. I'm living life. And I want that for my children.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, that's not to take anything away from my parents, but I know how important it is to have that stability as a child growing into your adulthood.
Yeah.
So just being able to have that now and for them to experience, I see how much it does impact their lives and how meaningful it is. And so I think that played a huge factor in my emotions.
Yeah.
Because I'm like I said, y'all, this can go on forever and ever. But even with our home, we have, and I know it seems so like, I don't know, it can seem so like TV type of thing.
Yeah.
Because we have a wall in our laundry room where it's like all the kids' height is on there. Well, mine's not on there because she can't stand up, but their height and the year of their birthday is on there to see like how much they've grown. And to do that is like you see it on TV and you see other like families do it where it's like, okay, this isn't a real family, it's television.
Yeah.
But to actually do that and like I said, be creating those memories and they can look at it and say like, dang, this is where I grew up. Look at this. It's beautiful. It's gonna be hard as hell.
You about to have a Will Smith moment in the middle of when he was standing in the middle of the living room when they were moving. They was all going their separate ways, and then he left.
Oh yes,
and then Carton came running down the stairs.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
you gonna have one of those moments.
It's gonna be that. It's going to be so hard when we decide to move from here to our forever home because this is our first home. It's so many memories that's gonna be here, and so. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have that moment.
Let me tell y'all another story, right? I'm going to tell y'all another story, another tote story. We're going to
Here you go.
Up.
No,
yeah,
you don't have to keep it real.
Listen to me. This is my keeping it real moment. Let me tell you how serious she is, or she was about these totes where she can just pick up and move, right? So
I can't.
My second year in the league, I don't think that we made it official yet. Let me do the math. This is my second off season.
We did.
No.
Yeah, no.
No,
yeah.
we wasn't. Was we official?
Yes.
I had back surgery.
Yes, we were.
No.
Yes, we were.
Because that's after.
Yes,
okay,
we were.
all right, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So during the off season, I just had back surgery. I moved back to Delaware, and I had got an apartment so that I could be there for like 4 months out of the year until I had to report back for out of season, off season camp training. And Asha, she showed up at my door one day with her totes. It's a blue tote, right? One of those totes that you probably get from Walmart or something. She showed up with her totes. She was just supposed to be staying the night here and there, but when she bought the totes, I was like, all right, she planned on staying here for 4 months. I'm like, all right, bet, whatever. So she finds her little space in the closet. She puts her blue tote in the closet. I think she had 2 totes, 2 blue and like a clear one, right?
Are you done? Are you done?
Different size clear ones.
Why do you remember
so
this?
One day, because this was traumatizing. So one day we get into an argument. I don't remember what we got into an argument about, but she was pissed. She was heated. So she goes into the room, literally just starts grabbing her totes. And while she's taking one tote at a time out the apartment, she's looking at me at the corner of her eye like I'm about to help her, take her totes to the car. I'm not, because I don't even know why you're doing all this, right? So she takes all 4 of her totes, 2 blue, 2 clear,
oh my goodness,
to her car and basically told me she's done with me. Later that night, she's back at the apartment carrying the totes back in the apartment. This time I helped her, right? Because I felt bad that she
It's
took
so
the totes out.
toxic.
It's very toxic. She took the totes out to leave me, but then I helped her carry it back in the house. So I guess that's what you mean by you can just pick up and go
Yes.
with those totes, because
In a jiff.
that day you was tripping. And I don't hold her down for this, because she looked so crazy doing all this, and it wasn't even that big of an argument. She just didn't
It
really
probably
know.
was.
No, it wasn't. She ain't know
For
how
me
to
to-
handle.
for me
She
to
ain't know
get
how
up
to
and
handle
go.
conflict like that back in the day, but she's so much better now.
Yeah.
But that's my little toaster. That's why I'll never forget about those totes.
Yeah, I had to think about that, because picking up and putting all that stuff in the car and coming back, that's a lot of work. So it's like, you really want to do this?
Yeah, and then she just chilled out after that.
Yeah.
We talked through our issues now. So I'm glad we have growth.
I can't, you guys. But yes. So moving right along, because like I said, this is not what this episode is about.
Yeah.
To our message from our real one. Okay. So they said, my husband and I have been married for 5 years and we have 3 children together. The last 3 years have been a nightmare. We argue all the time. We're not affectionate. It's like we are roommates. As a result, I found myself getting closer to a coworker. A coworker. It wasn't on purpose, but he makes me feel seen and heard. He makes me laugh. He fills a void that I have in my marriage. We haven't been physical, but the emotional connection is so strong. I'm on the verge of leaving my marriage so I can start over with my coworker. What should I do? Oh, Lord.
That's a lot. But it's not, it's normal, right? Because one of the leading causes of affairs, and she said it's not physical right now, but emotional affair is still an affair, is loneliness. And sometimes people who are married are more lonely than the people who are single. And that's like the worst type of loneliness, when you're in a marriage and you feel like you all by yourself. And the reason why that's the worst type of loneliness is because when you come together with somebody, it's with the expectation that y'all are going to do life together. When you're single, there are going to be moments where you're lonely,
Right.
because you won't have certain people around you. But when you're in a marriage, you don't expect that. So when it hits you, it hits different. So that is the leading cause of most affairs, just feeling lonely. But what I would say to her is this. Of course, things are going well with your coworker, because y'all don't have the same complexities
Yeah.
as you and your husband. Y'all not trying to build a life together. Y'all not trying to run a house together. Y'all are not trying to raise kids together. So he doesn't have the same responsibilities to you as your husband. So he can have fun with you. He doesn't have to talk about real things that are going on in your real life. So the connection that you have is probably stronger because you don't have the same responsibilities. You don't have the same complexity. So don't allow that to fool you to thinking that if y'all are around each other all day like you and your husband are, that it's going to be the same energy. Because both of y'all are putting on y'all best right now for each other, because you're only seeing each other at work. But he doesn't see what you're like outside of work. You don't see what he's like outside of work. Hopefully y'all not seeing that. But y'all are not seeing the complete picture of who each individual is, whereas you are with your husband. So don't confuse that. And another thing I want you to understand, because a lot of people get caught up in this where they want to leave their marriage to pursue a relationship with somebody else that they think they're going to be more successful in. Understand that only 11% of affairs actually turn into relationships. Only 11. So you may have this idea that you're going to run off with this person, y'all going to live happily ever after, y'all going to get in a relationship. Only 11% of affairs in relationships. And of those 11% of relationships, 75% or 11% of people who end up getting in a relationship and getting married, 75% of those marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
That divorce rate is higher than your first marriage. And the number one reason behind the divorce It's mistrust.
Yeah. I would say it goes to like how you get them is how you lose them.
Yeah.
Because I could not, as a person, if I'm the person that she's supposedly her coworker, I can't honestly feel like I can trust that you won't step out on me.
Ain't no way.
If we are having a situation in our relationship where we're not seeing eye to eye.
Yeah.
Because like you said, realistically, you're looking from the situation like, oh, it's so great, and he listens to me and he validates me and we have a great time together and all this other stuff, like you said, because y'all don't have everything that you have with your husband. Y'all don't have the time that y'all put in. Y'all don't have the children.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all don't have any of that. Mm-hmm. So it's limited to just what y'all have. That fun. Interaction, right? Yeah. The fun, the interaction, the talking that y'all have during work hours, or if y'all have it outside of work hours, but it's limited to only that. He hasn't seen you probably in your worst of the worst. You haven't seen him in the worst of the worst. Right. Y'all are probably not experiencing that side of each other. So when you do, if you do, hopefully not, go and be with this coworker, now you're going to have to see him in and out for who he is, right? Mm-hmm. And the same goes for you. And that comes with a lot of problems. Not to even put in the factor that you're taking in your children now and putting them on to another person. Right. So how is that dynamic of him interacting with your children? That's going to cause a whole nother problem, right? If it's not doing what it needs to do, or if it's not, a good situation, which most likely is not going to be because of how y'all were introduced and how the relationship started. So it's so many things that you're not factoring in. Whereas if you look at it from that perspective, okay, this isn't a good idea. Like, it may feel good to you right now because you have a void and you're not receiving it from your husband, but that's all it is. Right. Is the feeling. And once you realize that if you were to do something like that, the facts are it's not going to be what you're thinking it's going to be in the long run, then you will make decisions differently.
Yeah. No, I agree. So going back to what we said about the number one cause, because you said, what should you do? So we don't want to just say all this and then not tell you, give you actionable steps that you can take in order to try to fix things. Mm-hmm. But as we said earlier, the number one cause for affair is loneliness. Not sex, not having sex in a relationship, but feeling like you're lonely in a relationship. And loneliness is a byproduct of conflict and self-disclosure avoidance, where you don't want to come to your partner and tell them what's wrong because you're trying to avoid certain conflicts with them. You don't come to them and tell them what you feel like you're missing from your relationship. So therefore, you can't really fill that void that you're missing. In the message, you talked about how this new person fills that void. They make you feel seen. They make you feel heard. They make you laugh. When is the last time you actually sat down with your partner and said, listen, I don't get as much joy from our relationship that we used to have, and I want it so bad. And maybe we need to go seek help to try to get it back, but it's not there. Or I don't feel seen by you. I don't feel heard. I don't feel like you validate me. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we're not having these conversations. And as we talked about in episodes for so long ago, what you start to do is you start to lower the walls that surround your relationship that protects outside people from it. You start to lower that wall when you're not disclosing the things that you need or the issues that you have in your relationship that stop people from getting in. And then that allows people to creep in to your relationship. So you got to start having these conversations. And what I would tell you to do is stay committed to your commitment. Mm-hmm. If you said that you wanted to do life with this person, then do life with them. But don't do it in a miserable way. If something's bothering you, bring it up. Go seek help. Go seek guidance to help you overcome those challenges. Because with anybody that you have a relationship with, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be complexities. There may be times where y'all are not having as much fun as you have because now you have kids and marital satisfaction go down after you have kids. So there's always going to be challenges in any relationship that you have. You have to learn to work through those challenges instead of running away from those challenges.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because getting into today's topic,
ooh, that was like
we are discussing divorce is an option.
Yes.
But like we said, it's an option.
Right. It's interesting because you see all these videos on social media where people say, me and my wife, we're still together because we took divorce off the table. Divorce is not an option. And when you read through the comments, people are saying, yeah, when I get married, we're going to do the same thing. We're taking divorce off the table.
Right.
It's like, that sounds good for a social media clip, but in all actuality, is that real?
Right.
This is the Relationship Podcast, so we're going to keep it real. And the truth is, divorce is an option in marriage, but it's not the goal. Just because you take divorce off the table doesn't mean that you're going to have a good marriage, right? So the goal is not to stay married. I mean, the goal is not to get married. It's not just to stay married, but it's to have a healthy, respectable, and loving marriage. Most people are in marriages. They may be, this is why I never listen to people when they say, well, you should listen to me. I've been married 20 years. I've been married 30 years. The length of your marriage doesn't determine the health of your marriage. You might be in a marriage where you took divorce off the table, and every day for the past 10 years, you have been absolutely miserable because you don't want to get a divorce because you're trying to stay together for the kids. You don't want to get a divorce because you don't want to hear about what other people are going to say about you getting a divorce. So for me and Asha, it's not, yes, divorce is an option. There's certain things happen. We have certain boundaries that can't be crossed. And if they are get crossed, then we understand that this is the consequence. But our goal is not to not get a divorce. It's to stay married in a healthy and loving relationship. And the reason why I say this is because my professor says something to me in my master's program that really resonated with me. Because, of course, I took psychology. So we talk a lot about mental health. And he said, Devin, the absence of mental illness doesn't mean you have mental health. It just means you don't have a mental illness. Just like the absence of hate doesn't mean that you love somebody. You can be indifferent about them. So the absence of divorce doesn't mean that you have a healthy marriage. It just means that y'all are just existing. Y'all are just roommates. So divorce is definitely the option, but it's not the goal. It should not be the goal.
Yeah. That made me think of, what's that? Is that movie called Fences? It was with Denzel Washington.
And Viola?
Yeah. It made me think of that because so many people do, in fact, stay in a marriage because, like you said, they say, oh, we're going to take divorce off the table. We're not going to get a divorce, but they aren't happy.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that, not even just happy, but it's a lot of things that contribute to them not being in a healthy marriage because a lot of times, like we talked about before, when you're in a marriage, you're not going to always be happy.
That's what I was just about to say.
When you're in a marriage it's not a healthy marriage where it is things that are damaging you mentally, physically, emotionally, it's weighing on you. And that's not a healthy marriage to be in. And I think that's when the saying that, okay, divorce is an option comes into play when you are up against that type of thing.
Right.
And so when we say this, because we had a podcast where we talked about before where we were like, you know what, divorce, we don't bring up that word. We don't do this. We don't do that. And that's where I feel like where it falls in for us is we had a very in-depth conversation about what we want for our relationship, what the expectation is for our relationship, for our family, for our future. And we decided to go a different route and use the resources that we have out there and to, really instill certain values in our relationship so that we don't get to that point.
Yeah.
It's not to say, okay, that it will never happen or it can't happen. We don't want it to happen.
Right.
So we're doing everything that we can possibly do to avoid that. But realistically, I feel like a lot of people that go into a relationship saying, oh, it's not an option. We're going to do whatever we need to do to make sure that it doesn't happen. Well, are you doing that healthy? Are you doing that so that both of y'all are benefiting from that and your marriage is benefited from it? Because if, like we said, if you're staying in a marriage and you're saying, oh, well, we're not going to get a divorce, but y'all are doing things to each other that's not beneficial, right? If you're stepping out on your partner, like the message from a real one, if you're seeking attention and seeking guidance and seeking love and affection from someone else, that's not healthy. Right. So what resources do we need to use? What conversations do we need to have so that we can switch this and change it. Because even in that situation, of course, divorce is an option. It's on the table. But if you use certain resources, if you exhaust all your resources to try to change the way that dynamic is going, things can change.
Right.
But if you don't do that, then it's just like, okay, well, what do you expect? That's the final dot on the line. So
yeah. And I'm glad you clarified happy, because I didn't do that when I initially said, happy and healthy and respectful marriage. But like I said, going through school really changed my thought process and how I see things. So like when I say happy, I'm really referring to a term in psychology that means eudaimonia, which means you are operating at your best. So when I'm talking about happiness in a marriage, I mean, like, are we operating at our best as a union? So the way that I really measure, or in any relationship should measure, whether they have happiness, well-being, eudaimonia, whatever you want to call it, is the 5 things that I believe we talked about before, which is just PERMA. In your relationship, do you have positive emotions? Are y'all engaged in, do you and your partner share engaging activities that y'all can do together that you lose track of time? That I'm not thinking about the kids. I'm not thinking about if the bills are paid. I'm not thinking about nothing. Right now, I'm with you, and I have lost track of every other stressor that is going on in my life right now. We're just focused on each other. Is it a positive relationship between the two of you? Can I count on you during the tough times? And can you be there for me during the good times? Because a lot of people not only struggle with being there for their partner during the tough times, but they struggle being there for them during the good times because they think it's a competition. They think if their partner shares some good news with them, they got to one-up them and say, well, guess what happened to me today? Right. Like, can you be there for your partner in both the good and the bad? Do y'all have a meaning that really transcends the self, like as an individual? When we come together, when I think about our marriage, the work that we're doing right now, it gives us a lot of meaning to our relationship outside of the benefits that we get from being in a relationship for me and you. Like, we're a part of something big. This is a bigger movement that we're on, rather than just love and quote unquote happiness that we share together. And the last one is, do y'all have goals that you're accomplishing? Because one of the major things to anybody's well-being or happiness is progress, making progress towards certain goals. So do y'all have goals as a couple that y'all are actually achieving? Earlier in this podcast, you talked about us buying a house together and how much that meant to you. Like, we achieved the goal of buying our first home, and look at the impact that has had on you. And then you got to set new goals for the marriage. You know what I mean? So when we're talking about happy, we're not talking about that cheerful mood that's fleeting that everybody thinks that they should have and hold on to for the rest of their life. That just doesn't make any sense, because life is going to happen to you at certain points that you're going to have those negative type of emotions that you're going to experience. So just by reframing how you look at happiness, I think can really change what you're able to accomplish within your marriage.
Yeah. I think, what's interesting, I feel like a lot of times when people go into a marriage, they aren't prepared.
We wasn't prepared.
And it's like, when people say, oh, there's no way that, you can really prepare for a marriage, there's no way that you can really, you say, you can't prepare to be a parent. It's like, you can't prepare for a particular situation that may arise, but you can prepare to some degree, right? You can prepare yourself by instilling certain values within yourself and within your relationship. You can prepare by getting the resources and the knowledge and seeking the guidance that you need, so that when you do come in against something that could be challenging in your relationship, you already know how to attack that situation instead of it being you and your partner being attacking each other. I think when people go into their marriage more prepared, they'll be able to kind of counteract that divorce factor. Yeah. And that it starts way before the marriage. It starts way before the, will you get married to me? Before the engagement, is y'all doing the work while y'all are in a relationship so that y'all can have that solid foundation. And I think more people need to have certain conversations with their partners, deeper conversations with their partner, so that you're on the same playing field, that y'all know what y'all up against, that you know what you're getting yourself into, and that you know what you want for your future. So that way, when you do get to a point where divorce could be an option, okay, we already know how to repel this, right? We already did this research. We already have these tools that we can implement in our relationship. We know how to communicate effectively. We know how to interact with each other. We know each other's love language. Like all of these things that we talked about on previous podcasts that we're giving to y'all. We giving y'all free game, like literally, because
and they take a lot of time to do this.
Yes, research. It's so many things that you can instill in your relationship. And like we said before, we didn't know these things going into our marriage. We were trial and error, right? It was so many times where we could have been up against the divorce, right? Where we could have signed the dotted line and it had been over. But we actually implemented the things that we learned throughout these years to change that. And I think if so many people use the same resources and just put in the same energy and effort that we have put into our relationship, they could see a huge difference. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like we constantly stress that so much to people about how important it is to really use what's out there.
Yeah.
Not to make up an excuse for yourself and be like, oh, you know, I just didn't know what to do, or I didn't see a healthy marriage growing up, or I don't know how to do this. No, like there's so many ways that you can get the information and apply it to your relationship, the same way that you apply information to other aspects of your life for things to work. And so I think if people were to do that and take that seriously, they can see a huge difference in their relationship where they don't have to go the route of divorce.
Yeah. And I hate when people say that, there's no way to prepare for this type of stuff, that every marriage is different. Yeah, I mean, you have to make tweaks here and there, but the foundational principles of marriage or anything in life, like nothing around the sun is new. Like nothing is new. Cheating is not new. Feeling lonely in marriages is not new. Miscommunication in marriages is not new. Like the biggest causes of divorce are not new. There's extensive amounts of research, books, videos out there that you can learn from. So if you're getting into a marriage, you're about to get married, I think it's extremely important to go through a checklist. Okay, what are the top reasons why people get divorced? Oh, miscommunication, loneliness, conflict avoidance, self-disclosure avoidance. Do we do this in our relationship? Yeah, we do avoid conflict sometimes. Sometimes I don't tell you what I need from you because I don't want you to snap on me. I don't want you to feel like I don't appreciate you or I'm not grateful for how you show up. Well, how do you get rid of this? How do you get rid of the conflict avoidance? How do you allow yourself to come to your partner and communicate how you feel in a way that's not degrading, in a way that's not contemptuous or a place of criticism? There's resources out there to teach you how to do that so that you can prepare for the challenges. So stop saying there's no way that you can prepare for things or all marriages are different. We're pretty, at our core, a lot of us are the same. We are more alike than you want to believe or actually believe. And there are people out there like this podcast where we share our experiences so that you can learn from them. We try to be extremely transparent and extremely real with this podcast, regardless of what people may think, because we want y'all to see we have been at rock bottom. We ain't nowhere near rock bottom right now because we educated ourselves. We put in the work and it wasn't easy. So for people to say, well, it's not as easy as you, I know it's not as easy. We've been through it. This ain't just something we read in a book. This is not just something that we talk about. Yes, we have the credentials to do the work that we're doing right now, but the reason why we have the credentials to do the work that we're doing right now is because we went through the experience and we didn't know how to overcome it. So we took accountability, we put in the work, and we did what we needed to do to save our marriage and to save our family, and not just save our marriage and save our family in a way where we don't get a divorce, but we actually enjoy waking up and seeing each other.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to just give you guys a little bit, just go a little deeper with you guys, right? Because we always talk about being more intentional and going deeper and asking questions. But for those who are listening who may have not went back to the beginning and listened to all of our podcasts, you should.
Yeah.
But for those, I just want to go a little bit deeper so that you know how much of the title of divorce is an option was for us in our relationship, right? Because there was a point in time where, like I said, where we had before, the divorce word was being thrown out quite frequently.
The divorce rate or word?
Word in our relationship.
Okay.
And we were at a space where we were completely opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Like you were over here and I was over there. And so many things had factored into that, from us, going through the experience of Devin and his injuries, from Leah getting sick and Devin not being able to show up emotionally for me feeling lost and confused with myself and my career, from moving from place to place and having to start over and not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, from where we talked about before with cheating that had came up before we got married. So many things had factored in, right? Yeah. And there was so much resentment that was showing up in our relationship. There was so much anger and so much frustration where we weren't intimate with each other. Yeah. Like, we barely would wake up and, well, not even barely. We didn't wake up and hug and kiss and embrace each other. We weren't affectionate throughout the day. We weren't sexually involved. And so that was a time where those, outside people could come in because those walls were completely lowered, I would say, right? And Devin may have felt like I'm not getting the attention, or I'm not getting the love, I'm not getting the needs that I need fulfilled met. And I felt the same way. Right. And we went and sought out counseling from several different counselors, and nothing was clicking. And I feel like it wasn't until we both decided to take accountability on our own time for what we were contributing for why the relationship wasn't working. Mm-hmm. We had to do a lot of self-reflection and realize, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? Right. For one, how can I change this? Even before that, we had to figure out if we even wanted this to begin with. I think that was the biggest thing. Is like, okay, we're here. Yes, all of this stuff have gotten us here. So do we want this? Do we want to continue to move forward, knowing all that has been in the past that we have experienced and been up against, what we're facing right now in our present? Do we want to build a future together? And once we were able to sit down and realize, okay, we do want to have a future together and we had those tough conversations of asking each other that, it was like, okay, now it's the accountability factor. I have to take accountability for whatever I may contributed to the relationship to get to this point. And he did as well. And once we started to do that, it was like, okay, now let's do this way. Everything else wasn't working. So how can we do this the right way? And like I said, I say all that to say, like, the counselors that you in right now or that you went in the past may not have worked, but maybe that wasn't the right timing or the right person, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe they weren't giving you the right tools. Maybe you wasn't as committed. Exactly. Maybe they weren't giving you the right tools. Maybe you weren't in the right space where you truly wanted to go through and put all that you could into making sure that things worked. So whatever season that you're in your relationship, it's a lot that you have to factor in, but you have to first start off with the question of, what do we want this? Yeah. And if we do want this, what do we want to change, and how are we going to change it? When you have those in-depth conversations, not surface level conversations where it's like, yeah, I want to be in this relationship. Okay, well, why do you want to be in this relationship? Mm-hmm. What sacrifices are you going to make so that this relationship can work? What are you going to bring to this relationship that you haven't brought in the past so that this relationship can work? Like, getting to the very bottom and the core of whatever the issue is and how y'all can change it, that's where it starts at. Right. So for me, it's like, okay, like you said, we've experienced being up against never saying divorce was not an option, because we went into it saying, okay, we didn't get married to get divorced. That's not what we wanted to do. We both came from broken families where our parents was married and got a divorce. We didn't want that. We don't want that. And we see that we're doing things that could lead to that. Right. So now that we know all of this and we have all this information and everything up against us, like, what is it like when you're like pretty much like a detective where they have everything up on the board, right? And you see how this connects to this and this connects to that. You see all of this stuff laid out, and it's just like, okay, is this what we want for our future? Well, no. Okay, so let's go all the way back to point A and figure how we can rework all of this and get to where we need to get to. And so I say that to say, like I said, you can get to that point, but you have to implement all the things that's out, all the tools and all the resources to get to that point. And it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It's going to take a lot of time, but you can get there. You just have to be willing to go there.
Yeah. I don't think I want to say anything after that. I mean, you done told them everything. I don't know what else to tell them. Like, we let you know that, yes, divorce is an option. It's not the goal. We let you know that we've been at rock bottom. We've been able to overcome. Like, when you say, like, one of the things I'm most proud about with our marriage is what we put out there is real.
Mm-hmm.
Videos, pictures of our family, like, it's real. We don't fake anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't see pictures, you don't see certain, because we're not faking it for nobody's approval.
Mm-hmm.
We doing what we need to do to keep our marriage protected from the outside world. We not putting on no filters to make everybody else feel good. And when you can operate in your truth, when you can live in your truth, when you truly love your partner, when you truly love your family, I don't know, bro. It's like a different type of feeling. I feel like a lot of people, they don't want to get married because all they see is the negative side of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because the positive side is not being portrayed out there.
Yeah.
But what I'm telling you, for somebody who grew up and didn't believe in marriage and didn't want to get married, I was wrong. I didn't want none of those things because I only saw the negative side of it. But when I actually experienced it for myself, having a family, having a wife, being a part of a family that truly loves each other and truly is working to try to be the best version of it as possible, it is a beautiful feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just told y'all what I told you this morning or yesterday. I don't know, because my days be getting confused, where I said that I'm glad that we made the decision to start a family together.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a special feeling, but it's just not being pushed enough. And y'all are missing out by not taking the necessary steps in order to have that eudaimonia in your relationship, because I feel like you can just attack anything in this world. You can overcome anything in this world when you have those type of positive relationships around you, but most people don't know how to do it.
Yeah. So before we close, y'all, I just wanted to say this because what you just said, it just brought this up in my mind. But when we tell our story, we share our story, we share all of this information, it's not to say that, you know, you have to champion all of these things to have a great relationship, right? We say this to say, if you're at the beginning phases of your relationship, if you're not even in a relationship yet, all of the things that we're telling you, all of the resources that we use, all of the knowledge that we have gained and the values that we've instilled in our relationship is things that you do beforehand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you don't have to get to those points in your relationship. Because being in a great relationship doesn't mean that, or a great marriage doesn't mean that we done went through hell and back. We done went through the valleys and everything like that just to get to this point. No. That doesn't not make you have a healthy relationship. That doesn't make it a loving relationship. That doesn't make it a great relationship. That is not the measurement of what your relationship should be. If you go into a relationship and you have worked on yourself and your partner has worked on herself and y'all have learned all that y'all can learn to have a healthy, happy, long-lasting relationship, it can work without all the negativity. It can work without all the challenges. Yes, y'all gonna have outside things that may contribute to and factor into y'all life that may be out of y'all control. But y'all going through certain experiences to overcome, to have a better relationship is not something that you have to go through in order to get to a certain place in your marriage. So I just wanted to say that because I feel like some people could say, oh, well, y'all done went the this, that, and the third, and y'all talk about where y'all are at now. Yes, that's because it's for you to understand that if you are that person in that position that you can definitely get to this spot that we're in with putting in the work and doing things differently. But if you're not in that position and you're not looking to be in that position, this is why we're sharing this as well, so that you can use all of these things beforehand so that you don't have to worry about that. So I think that's why it's important for the listeners, whether you are in a relationship or you're in a marriage or you're single, that you understand that this is not just selective to a certain type of person or a certain type of couple. This is for all individuals out there who don't want to experience, who may experience, but want to change the experience, love in the right way, love in a healthy way, and with your partner in a healthy way. And I think that's why this podcast is doing what it's doing and is impacting people's lives, is because we're really trying to change the narrative. Like, we don't want to push like you said, the struggle of, we don't want to push it to say, oh, you got to go through this to get to here. No, you can have a beautiful, healthy, happy, long-lasting marriage and relationship. Just do the work beforehand.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Because what we try to do with this podcast is really built on the foundation of positive psychology, right? A lot of times people ask me, well, why did you decide to go the route of positive psychology? Why didn't you just do regular psychology? And it's because for so long, people only focused on the negative things in life, right? They focus on mental illness instead of how do you get mental health. You won't go to the doctors when something's wrong instead of going to the doctor to prevent things from going wrong. And what positive psychology does is it gives you certain interventions to prevent the negative things from happening. So like what Asha just talked about, yes, we're going to, when we come out with different interventions for y'all, different courses, we're going to have things that allow you to overcome some of the challenges that you're facing right now in your relationship or your marriage. But a lot of our stuff is going to be geared towards certain interventions for preventing those things from ever happening. Because that's what we wish we would have did before we got into our marriage. We wish we would have learned what to do, how to have a successful relationship so we didn't have to endure those challenges. But the fact that we endured those challenges, we share that aspect with you, but we want y'all to do the work before those challenges even arise. So when you see it, you like, oh, I know what this is, but we already been doing this, so we'll be able to overcome that. Right. So a lot of our stuff is going to be early intervention to stop you guys from having to deal with the certain challenges that we've dealt with. But if you're also in the storm like we were in, we will have resources for you as well to overcome that. Before we wrap it up, I wanted to share a recent review that we just got that I think touched on what you just said, or why this podcast does what it does, because we really try to be different in our approach in this podcast game. Because what you will see a lot going on is, you know, men being pit against women, men telling women how they should act, women telling men how they should act. Just, I think there's a lot of great entertainment out there. But a lot of these podcasts on relationships really lacking substance. They go off of their own personal experience instead of actual research that really shares the experiences of entire community, entire country, entire world, not just what you've been dealing with. So we try to, you know, put as much of that into it. Of course, we're Christians. We put our faith into this as well. But somebody left a comment that really resonated with us in our mission and what we're trying to do on this podcast. And they said, I love this podcast. The realness, the transparency, it's also relatable. And I'm a lot older than you all, and I didn't even know half the things you all talk about. I've been struggling through my marriage trying to figure out how to, and it's cut off. But we get the gist of the message from that. Is just like, it doesn't matter what age you're in. A lot of people, or what age you are, what age group you're in, a lot of people really just don't know. They want this. They want this thing to last forever. They want to have a healthy relationship. They want to have a successful marriage, but they don't know how. So our goal on the Real Relationship Podcast is, number one, always keep it real about everything. and then give y'all the information to help y'all have relationships that flourish, help y'all build that resilient relationship, that resilient marriage that can endure and overcome whatever challenge you're dealing with. And I promise you stick with us, we're going to deliver on it. Because like I said, this is where we derive a lot of our meaning from, of course, with our kids and what we're trying to accomplish. But to serve other people, it gives us a lot of meaning.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And until next time, you guys, keep it real.
Yes, sir.